Guys, it's official. I have found my favorite new clothing brand, Marine Layer. This stuff is so soft, and guys, it makes for the perfect gift. To spread a little holiday cheer, our listeners are going to get 15% off with our exclusive link. Just head to marinelayer.com/Chael15. Honestly, you can get all of your holiday shopping done right here one time at Marine Layer. They got amazing gifts for guys and gals, like sweaters, tees, overshirts, and beanies. I absolutely love their signature crew tee, but I've added a number of items from their winter archive collection to my Christmas list. This vintage collection is ski-inspired with tons of bright colors, color-blocked puffer vests, and more. The best part is Marine Layer offers free shipping and returns for an entire year, no questions asked. I think we can all agree, great gifts can be tough to find, but you don't have to look any further than Marine Layer. For a limited time, get 15% off by going to marinelayer.com/Chael15, or just click on the link below. Who should Islam Makhachev fight next? Now, I gotta tell you guys, I did a poll on YouTube. 43,000 of you weighed in quickly as well. I gave you three options. Arman, who just fought, who Dan Hooker put over, by the way. Like, nobody put Arum in the conversation to be fighting Islam the way Dan Hooker did, if you guys saw that article. It was very compelling to hear from a fellow fighter within the division. Okay, great. Justin Gaethje, who I think is the #1 contender. Now, within that, wouldn't be the literal term, and that Justin's going to have the bout agreement, that is going to Oliveira, who is ranked in front of Gaethje and who defeated Gaethje. Like, I do understand it, but Gaethje offers a parity. Great. Those were your three. What do you guys think? Who do you want? Tell me real fast if you haven't seen this, if you didn't participate. You ready? Overwhelming. Wasn't even close. Oliveira, and that's not what I would have predicted. I am so out to lunch on how much you guys love Charles. And you let me know in the comment section. I mean, I hear it a lot. And I do find myself not saying great things about Oliveira. But it's not meant to be. Like, as time goes by and I made 10 pieces on Oliveira and none of them praised him, I swear to you it was just a coincidence. Like, when I'm breaking down Oliveira, I do find him, right, like when I'm breaking down anybody, in a comparative nature. There wasn't anything competitive, in my opinion, about Oliveira going into Islam. And DraftKings agreed. Just by example, 3-1. You guys are the ones that bet the money and move that line one way or the other. So you also didn't find it competitive. Now that they're going to rematch, it's 4-1. So there's not this great competitive nature, but there does appear to be a love for Charles, of which I don't push back on. Like, he seems like a real gentleman. He's a handsome guy. He's a successful guy. Like, I do understand those things. It still surprises me that you picked Charles. Because if you love Charles, you're putting him in what seems like an unwinnable situation. And you're not left to guess. You're not left to wonder. They've already fought. They fought for 7.5 minutes. There was nothing competitive about it. And that isn't me picking on him. Sometimes you just have this matchup or you have a guy. And if I'm right, if Charles isn't competitive with Islam, Charles is the next best thing. So I don't see where I'm insulting him. That is my point. I don't see where I'm insulting him. Charles could be, he would need a little bit more time, but just to give a comparison that you would understand, he could be the Max Holloway of that division. Max Holloway, without comparison, is the #2 fighter in the world, and for a period of time, he was #1. That's the same thing with Charles. Like, as I look at Justin Gaethje, just for example, who's the BMF champion. He's the reigning champion. We're told that Gaethje's next fight will be for the belt. the next time the belt is defended, it doesn't involve Gaethje, but Gaethje's next time participating will be against whoever's got the belt. I mean, right, this is a great fighter. He got stopped by Charles, and that wasn't overly competitive. Oh, and by the way, it happened at home. Happened when Gaethje was probably fighting at his best. So I'm sharing for you, like, I do understand the greatness of Charles. What I don't understand is when he comes out and tells you repeatedly, I don't want that fight. It does surprise me when you continue to push him in that direction. And I'm not telling you you're wrong. I'm just making an observation. It surprises me. I was trying to fight Daniel Cormier one time, and I had this guy, Ross, and Ross told me, Chael, I like you. I'm not helping you get that fight. I do not want to see you against Daniel. And it was a tough thing to hear, but I will share with you, I've remembered it, and Ross was being sincere. He had a relationship with me. He had no relationship with Daniel. Of the two of us, he cared about me and liked me more, which is why he didn't want to see that fight, right? I mean, it was one of these things. So, and they just don't go hand in hand. They don't. Like, if you think, no, we're behind Charles, that isn't true, Chael. We think the first fight was to be blamed or explained through and then fill in the blank. No, you don't. The line has moved 4-1 as opposed to the previous fight that was 3-1. So you don't think that. You don't actually think he's going to win the fight. And he told us repeatedly, I'm not going to do that fight. I brought that to you guys. I never announced Islam versus Charles. Never, not once. It came out and I pushed back. I told you guys, do not get excited for that fight. It's not going to happen. I have a source. My source was Charles Oliveira, who said I'm not fighting him on that date. There was a big problem with the date. So it just keeps on striking me. I like parity, by the way. I like these new matchups and these 55-pounders, right? I mean, we're going to have to go through the gamut again. But you try to think of both sides. And Islam is not one. And this is a respect to Khabib, and this is a respect to Khabib's father. This is a respect to the philosophy of Coach Nurmagomedov, who is now Coach Nurmagomedov Jr. is in here, where you take on anybody. And I love it, and it's so refreshing in the way it's supposed to be. I will just share with you, like anything that still comes with a definition, you can be the guy. I will fight anybody, anyone. You pick, I'll do it. Anyone can take this belt from me. I don't deserve the damn thing. I don't even want it. Like, you can have this attitude. You don't have to do it twice, right? If you go out there and you run through a guy, in that first fight, which was this top of my head, but it was about 7 minutes, about 7.5 minutes, somewhere right through that second round. But they did everything, guys. They had striking. It was not close. They had wrestling. It was not remotely close. They had jiu-jitsu and they had groundwork. It was overwhelming in one direction. They had pace, they had condition, they have a confidence of which you're going to control that octagon. Who's going to move forward? Who's going to get the other? Who's going to push the other guy in the fence? Should you hit the fence? Whose back is up against the fence? Like, there's a lot of things that get tested. And they got tested in that 7.5 minutes. There was nothing in there that was competitive. So when I argue to parity, when I argue and tell, God, I'd like to see something new. I'd like to see Gaethje in there. I understand that Charles deserves more than Gaethje. I understand. Gaethje understands that. Gaethje has been a complete sport about this. He has never once tried to get in front of Charles. He's always said, I will wait. I will wait until my turn. If he's not going to do it, then call me. He's always showed a tremendous respect to the fact that they competed and Oliveira won. But it still provides a parity. You guys want to know an interesting stat? I think you'll find this interesting because I don't think that you know this. I don't think you remember this. But tell me a time that Khabib lost a fight. If you're real good and you're hardcore fans, you know that right off the bat. 29-0. I don't know my record. And I know his. 29-0. I might not remember it the same if he got to 30-0. Like, there's something about him stopping one, or there's something that I like about the number 29, quite frankly, at least when it comes to having to remember it later. Okay, great. So Khabib didn't lose a fight. Tell me a scenario you saw Khabib lose. Tell me a time that there was an exchange and he struggled. There's an answer to that, by the way. There is an answer. Happened a couple of times. Same fight, Al Iaquinta. Al Iaquinta is the answer to that. Now, tell me a round that Khabib lost. It's happened. Do you know it? Khabib lost the one and only round that was completed against Justin Gaethje. Those scorecards came in. Frankly, it was a surprise to me. I thought that Khabib had won the round. That's a different conversation. Those scorecards officially came in. That fight got stopped in the second. So the one completed round, Justin Gaethje won that round. That's a really big deal, in my opinion. That is a really big deal to speaking to the abilities of Justin Gaethje, to understand what he's up against, to come up with a game plan and a strategy and go out there and execute it. Because now we're not wondering if Justin can do it, right? He's already done it. Now he's got to do it 4 more times, but that's for a clean sweep. In that specific fight I'm referencing, he's got 4 more rounds. Talking about Gaethje, he's got 4 more rounds. He's only got to do it 2 more times. That's interesting. That is interesting to a degree. And while that might not be something that somebody as decorated as Justin Gaethje is going to brag about, I think that you should remember that. Because when Justin's saying, hey, I learned something, I now know something, and I get to try again. And even if it's against the heir apparent, right? It's the same strategy and styles and philosophies. And that's the same argument that people are using for Charles. Hey, Charles should get the rematch with Islam. Like, okay, everybody agrees he doesn't want it. So now if we're going to force him out there, and that is what it is. If you don't offer him any other fight, if you tell him this is the only fight for you, otherwise your phone's not ringing, you're forcing him into a fight that he doesn't want to do. Now you're talking about a cash grab. And if the belief by the fan is to argue, no, there was something off in that first fight, his rib was out of place and he didn't say anything, but he let him go again. If you're using that argument, which I think you're insincere with, which is why you allowed the line to go from 3-1 to 4-1. You guys do that, not DraftKings. That same argument would go in the direction of Gaethje, but be much more favorable. Now it's not a matter of I was hurt and I got to change and I'm healed now. It's a matter of I've already done it. I did it to his coach. I did it to his mentor. And I only need to do it 2 more times and I was going to be given 4 shots. Like, I just find it to be a very interesting argument. I'm not going to win this one. You guys have been very clear that you want Charles. But Charles was very straight with us last time. 3 different times. 3 times. One of them in writing through social media of his verified account. 3 times he said, I don't want the fight. So I don't know where Charles is at now. Perhaps another tweet will come out tonight, if you will. And I won't be able to say these things. But until we hear from Charles that he wants the fight, why are we pushing him in that direction? Simple question by me, but I think it's a very fair question by me.